Yo, what's up, guys? It's been a very long time, and I'll have to give you a reason for why it's been such a long time. And it's because I recently got stripped of Premiere Pro rights recently, and I had to renew that license. But I've got it back now, so that is a very good thing, and I can start posting videos again. Now, what am I gonna do today? See, recently I've watched a video of a top 100 NBA players of all time list, and I'm not gonna lie to you, it wasn't great. But here's my top 100 of all time, and I personally think I made it as polished as I can. I did actually have to take earlier, but didn't go according to plan. But I'm gonna have to redo it again this time, and yeah, I feel like this is the best I can do it. So we're gonna get started. So, at number 100, I got Celtics legend Robert Parrish. Most appearances ever. I think he still holds that record right now. Longevity has been amazing. It's amazing he can play for this long, and he's a reliable center and was responsible for many championships he won at the Celtics. And later on in his career, I think he won another title as well. I forgot where exactly. Right, 99, I got Peja Stojakovic. European phenom, was very underrated during his day. I think one of the best shooters in his generation as well. Did a lot for the Sacramento Kings, and back in the day when Sacramento Kings were actually title contenders, far cry from what it is now, even though they have gotten a little better. But Peja Stojakovic at 99. Tim Hardaway Sr., the original inventor of crossovers, and yeah, he had a very successful career. 97, I got Dave Cowens. MVP. People seem to forget that, and people seem to think he was robbed of winning that one because he won it over Oscar Robertson, but doesn't take away what he is as a player. He's like, I think he's not really that tall, but at the time he can still get like 15, 16 rebounds a game. That's very impressive. Like, I think only people that were able to match it since then were probably Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell. Walt Frazier, very solid point guard. Definitely a top 10 point guard in NBA history. Dikembe Mutombo, very good defender. I think his offense might not be as great, but his defense was enough for him to get into All-Star and later in the Hall of Fame. 94, Chris Mullin, the original best shooter in Golden State before the coming of Steph and Clay. People seem to reminiscent about Chris Mullin and his shot. 93, this might cause some surprise, but DeMar DeRozan, great mid-range shooter, exciting player to watch. And when I do watch DeRozan play, it's amazing. Sam Jones, now people don't know, he actually has the second most championships of all time with 10. And he has been one of the primary scorers for the Celtics during that dominant Celtics dynasty when they won like 8 titles in a row. Yeah, so he was one of the main guys at 10. He would attack. I think his career high is 26 points a game. So yeah, have to give him the flowers for that. Devin Booker at 91. Now, we can talk about his 70-point game. I think he's a pretty complete player. I think he can shoot the three, he can dribble, he can shoot from mid-range, and he has a good layup package as well, even though he doesn't really perform that well in the playoffs, even though he has gotten a lot better recently, think of that. This is another one I think people are going to talk about. It's my favorite player in the NBA of all time, Jayson Tatum. Now, I'll tell you why I'll put him here already, because if you think about it, I feel like Jayson Tatum, people don't seem to realize, but I don't think anybody had this much playoff success this early in his career since maybe the Kobe days. Like, I do not remember a rookie that was able to carry his team to the Eastern Conference Finals without 2 star players. Like, at the time when, if you look at that first playoff run he went when they lost to the Cavs eventually, he was like, the whole team had little to no playoff experience. The only guy that probably has a veteran experience is Horford, but everybody else, I feel like this is probably their first real chance at the playoff run, and Tatum was the best player on that team. And he has since then, he's been in the NBA for 6 complete seasons, and he's made the conference finals 4 times and the NBA finals 1 time. And I feel like if we have a little bit more luck and a little bit more help down the line, I feel like Tatum can definitely go ahead and win that championship because he absolutely deserves it, and he absolutely is on the line to get one soon with one of the best winning records in NBA history as well. So these are stats people don't seem to notice. He puts up a slow scoring explosion sometimes. The most 50-point game by a Celtic, franchise record leader in Celtics points as well with 60. So yeah, Have to put him in there, and I don't care what any of you guys say. Now, this guy I actually did not actually consider having him on the list, but then I just realized how much hyped he was before he had all these injuries, and he was such an amazing player, like one of the best ticket sellers back in the day. Penny Hardaway. Now, yeah, another small forward, one of the best small forwards at the time. People thought he was actually going to succeed Jordan in the Eastern Conference when he was playing with the Magic, but unfortunately some injury issues didn't happen, and yeah, he just didn't became, his prime was cut short, unfortunately. But it does not take away the fantastic years that Penny Hardaway had before then. So yeah,
I strongly apologize having doing this, but I made a last minute adjustment to my list. Coming in at number 88, I have the one and only Derrick Rose. Now, a lot of people would think, why would I even put him here? But I feel like his career in his later stages should be more respected, because even after then, he was able to still come back, even though he lost his athleticism, and he turned into a new point guard. A point guard that people just doesn't seem to appreciate. You're able to pass the ball, shoot the three, you name it. And I feel like he deserves a bit more respect. So Derrick Rose, an MVP winner, real entertainer, number 88.
Moving on, I got Wes Unseld, another underrated player, a leader, and I think he won a championship with him as well. So have to give respect to that. And I have Wes Unseld at 87. 86, another guy again, just like Hardaway, had been injury prone throughout his career, but when he is on the court, he is very, very valuable, and it's Yao Ming. And when he came into the NBA, I don't think, even though he was first overall pick, a lot of people expected him to fail, but he proved all them doubters wrong and became a star player, one of the most popular players in his era of the NBA. I think he also broke records for all-star votings because he was such a popular figure, and lots of people, especially Asians, just love him as a basketball player. And as well, he is a very humble individual and has a very complete skill set for a 7'7" player at the time. Now I'm going to move on to 85, and another versatile defender, and I'm going with Draymond Green. Now, stats alone, you don't tell the full story, but Draymond Green is very, very valuable. Won a Defensive Player of the Year, won a steals champion as well, and yeah, he can just do everything. He can pass, rebound, score, and defend. And he can also sometimes have a scoring explosion, even though it doesn't happen as much anymore because he's just not in his prime. But prime Draymond Green is something legit. Moving on, and I feel like this guy influenced basketball just out of nowhere. Just people didn't expect him to have the impact that he would have in the NBA, but he actually unexpected influenced Japanese basketball as well. And I'm going to go with Dennis Rodman, the Worm. Now, I'll tell you why he influenced Japanese basketball, because before then, I feel like Japanese, who plays basketball in Japan? Let's be honest about it. But then they wrote this manga called Slam Dunk, and it's based on Dennis Rodman as a player, someone that just isn't very skilled. Like, he just started basketball very, very late and eventually became such a great player, a very valuable player. It's very reminiscent to Dennis Rodman in his career as a whole. Does have a bit of a temper as well, and since that manga's released, and I feel like there's a lot more Japanese players coming in, I think likes of Hachimura and I think Yuta Watanabe as well. So the hustle as well, his hustling is one of his specialties, and which is why he was such a valuable player and was able to stay in the league for this long and was able to make a Hall of Fame, even though he was only able to average 7 points. Right. 83, I got Gilbert Arenas. Now, this might also be a bit debatable, but I think when Gilbert Arenas was focused and was playing, he was one of the most prolific scorers in his generation. And yeah, just the shame that things off the court just didn't really, just kind of ruin him in a bit, and people don't seem to give him the recognition. Mitch Richmond, again, very, very consistent player. He played for Golden State, Sacramento, and all these teams. Always averaged 20 points for a very, very long season. I don't exactly know how many seasons in a row, but until he actually was out of his prime, he was always averaging 20 points. Very, very consistent player. 81, I'm going to go with someone that I only see 3 months out of, and that's Jimmy Butler. But thankfully that 3 months is the most important couple of months, because he always shows up in the playoffs. In the regular season, I feel like he just doesn't really do much. I feel like he's just getting ready for the playoffs during the regular season. But yeah, Butler in the playoffs is a real deal. People call Jimmy Buckets, Playoff Jimmy, so many nicknames, because that's just who he is in the playoffs. Up next, I've got another MVP and another player ruined by injuries, unfortunately. But Bill Walton, and back when his Trailblazer days, I think he was an amazing player, amazing center. And then he got injured and had such a long spell where he just wasn't really great and just wasn't himself no more. But what I did like about him is the fact he was able to turn the season around playing for the Boston Celtics, and he became such a key piece in one of the best teams ever in Celtics history, the 96 season. And he was able to stay healthy at the time, and we didn't really regret having to give up Cedric Maxwell and then a first rounder for him. Just shows how valuable he actually ended up becoming, even though people thought he was finished and there's no point in him playing basketball anymore. But yeah, that was Bill Walton, and he ended his career very, very well. Ended his career as a champion. Now, moving on, I got another defensive masterclass beast, and that is Ben Wallace, most defensive player of the years, and I think one of the best undrafted players of all time. Not even one of the best undrafted player of all time. Nobody thought he would become such a great player during the 1996 draft. His class was so stacked up, but somehow he didn't even get drafted, unfortunately. But he ended up becoming an all-star, all defensive for so long, all NBA even, and made the Hall of Fame. So he was definitely one of the biggest overachievers in the NBA, and he was a huge piece in the Pistons' very long consecutive conference finals runs that they make every single year. So it's crazy. Now, number 78, I got James Worthy, underrated player because he's always been undershadowed by Magic and Kareem. But James Worthy, he did win a Finals MVP, and yeah, great scorer and can do the lot. Number 77 got another Finals MVP that's been overshadowed sometimes, Tony Parker. Very, very important piece for the San Antonio Spurs. They won 5 championships, and he actually got a Finals MVP with it. And yeah, he was one of the leaders. Well, Tim Duncan's the main leader, but he was also one of the very important pieces during that championship, during their dynasty runs. Let's be honest, when the Spurs win the championship, I don't remember anybody saying stuff about it. But he was very, very important to the team. Number 76, I got Alonzo Mourning, and yeah, it's a little bit inconsistent career as well. Played for the Heat most of the time, but he was able to come back from a heart defect, I think it was, and became an all-star and all-NBA and whatnot. Yeah, Alonzo Mourning's, again, also a great defender and also a key piece in their respective championship runs down the line for Miami. Now, I'm going to move on to an international player. It's Spain, Pau Gasol. Again, very versatile defender, key piece for offenses for the Lakers and later on the Bulls as well. He was actually quite productive with the Bulls as well. One of the best Spanish players of all time. I don't think they really effectively had anybody like Pau Gasol ever since he retired. Like, yes, he had brother Marc Gasol, but Marc Gasol was not Pau Gasol, unfortunately. But so yeah, 74. I'm gonna go with Tony Parker's undermate, Manu Ginobili. Now, again, another guy, very big overachiever in the NBA. And Tim Duncan actually had the story saying that he didn't even know who he was because, yeah, he was just such a nobody. And he actually didn't come to the Spurs until like 3 years later. So, yeah, he spent quite a while in the international stages. But when he came in, immediately we just saw how good he was. And he was a key difference maker, especially in that finals against Detroit. How they were able to win, even though Tim Duncan won MVP, but a lot of people thought Manu should have won it as well. So, same 3, got Willis Reed, one of the last guys from that Knicks team that actually was able to win championships. Nowadays, Knicks, I don't even know where the direction is going. Yes, they're playing well with Brunson nowadays, but Willis Reed was the last real deal with the Knicks and was actually have winning intangibles and are able to win a championship. Paul Arizin, I think played for the Philadelphia Warriors, and I think also another key piece for their championship win. I think he a great scorer as well. Now 71, Gary McGlove Payton was glad he got his championship at the end because he definitely was a player that deserved to win championship, even though he wasn't key piece at the Heat because he was clearly out of his prime. Seattle Payton was something different, like one of the best defensive guards in the NBA at the time. And actually the only point guard to win Defensive Player of the Year until Marcus Smart. So shows you that Gary Payton's a real deal and how much people rate him as a defender. Now, a guy a bit before my time, number 70, Bob McAdoo. Number 69, I got Klay Thompson. Now, I think Klay Thompson is the second best shooter in NBA history. I think he surpassed Ray Allen simply because I think when he's hot, he is I can even argue he's the best shooter in the NBA if he was hot. He was like the third option and can still score 50, 60 points. Holds the record for the most points in a quarter with 37. How he got 51 in the end. I think he could have got a little bit more, but that is not criticism because he was a lead scorer. Also the most 3-pointers in a game as well with 14. And it's going to be a tough task for Steph to chase records like that. I think Steph actually has a couple of records to catch with 3-pointers down. He does not hold the record for most threes in the game. That's by Klay. He does not have the most points in a three-game contest because that was sold by Sabrina Ionescu. So yeah, got some work to do, man. All right. Number 68, I got Jerry Lucas. Again, underrated. I think he's one of the best rebounders at the time, only behind Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain. And yeah, only players to have his rebounding stats since then. So all I have to say about that. Easily a top 10 power forward of all time. 67, I got Scottie Pippen. Now, even without Jordan, I think Pippen will still be a great player. But obviously, being with Jordan, he got a lot more attention and people seem to dub him as the sidekick and like the second best player in the NBA, even though I don't actually agree with that. But Scottie Pippen's a real deal. And when you saw when Michael Jordan wasn't there, he actually almost won MVP apparently. So yeah, it just shows you how valuable Scottie Pippen is. And apart from Jordan, he's the only one that's saved for both repeats as well. It just shows how much Jerry Krause and Ryan Stoppin value Scottie as a player, even though, yes, he had some difficult issue towards the end about the salaries and whatnot, but how much Scottie Pippen meant to the organization that he's getting paid. So yeah. 66, I got Clyde Drexler, superstar for the Portland Trail Blazers at the time, and being career high average is 27. I think he took the Blazers to the final, even though we lost to Chicago because Chicago just was a much better team. But yeah, another superb shooting guard as well. And that's the reason actually Portland ended up skipping out on Jordan, because they just value Clyde Drexler so much. And yeah, and nobody really had that much sky on Clyde Drexler since then. So yeah, that's how I feel about it. 65, I got Chris Webber. Now, he was just in time in his generation. I feel like that was the last generation where they actually played the traditional role of him playing a power forward. I think if he was playing nowadays, he would play center like he did at the Golden State Warriors with Don Nelson, and you know how that did not work out at all. But yeah, Chris Webber, obviously a all-star caliber power forward, and made the Hall of Fame and had some very good years with the Wizards, even though people don't seem to talk about it no more. People seem to talk about even Golden State more than they did with the Wizards. So yeah, I don't know what's going on with the Wizards, but it is what it is. Moving on, I got Jason Kidd, one of the best passers in today's generation. Also had a very good longevity. I think he was still productive even in his final season with the Knicks. And yeah, key piece in the Dallas's championship run. And now a coach, he's still making his name as well. So yeah, that's what I'm going to say about it. Moving on, I got Chris Bosh, probably one of the best power forwards in his generation again. Chris Bosh was the face of the Toronto Raptors, and even the second face after Vince Carter. So one of the second face, and then he went to Miami, won his championships, and that clutch rebound in the 2013 finals. I think that's all you need to know about Chris Bosh, to be honest. Moving on, I got Kevin McHale at 62. Now, torture chamber made first team All-NBA, and yeah, and the fact that he was able to average like 20-something points a game, even as a sixth man for so many years, is amazing. Just shows how efficient he was in his prime. And yeah, he had a 26 points per game season. He did hold the record for the most Celtics points of all time with 55 until he was surpassed by Larry Bird a couple of weeks later, I think. So yeah, second option. I don't think Bird will win any championship without Kevin McHale, I'll be honest. So yeah, Bird was a star, but he needed McHale and Parrish for him to have such a dynasty he had. 61, I got Paul the Truth Pierce, one of the most clutch players, one of the best three-point shooters of all time, and most importantly, he was a super fun to watch player. Now, We know Paul Pierce is a very good fundamental. I think he's only second to Kobe Bryant in terms of footwork. His shoulders allow him to create space and is able to drive to the rack as well and score points. He can score in absolutely everywhere. Paul Pierce is definitely one of the most versatile players in the NBA. 60, I got George Mikan, one of the best players in his generation. 59, I got Pete Maravich, great scorer, especially in college and even in the NBA with the Utah. Just a shame he wasn't playing for such a good team that he didn't actually win a championship. 58, Alex English, again, 28 points per game. Just shows you he was great scorer, one of the best small forwards in his generation, top 10 small forward of all time as well. Nate Archibald, same thing, top 10 player in his position. 56, I got Dwight Howard. It's just a shame that his reputation now has just ruined everybody's thoughts on him because he's still a top 60 player regardless. Don't care how people think of him. 3-time defensive player of the year, many times of a rebound leader. In his prime with the Magic, he was just amazing. And even after, when he was playing with the Rockets and whatnot, he was still productive, and he still got a championship as well. Elgin Baylor, now probably one of the most unluckiest players in the NBA. I think he's lost 7 finals and hasn't actually won one, but he was a great scorer. I think he averaged 34 plus points a game a season, and he averaged 30 points consistently, so that just tells you all you need to know. Paul George. Now, Paul George has some questionable times, especially in the playoffs, but I think he's, again, like Paul Pierce, like so many players behind him, very versatile. He can attack and defend, can dunk, lay up, shoot the three. His skill set is very complete. One of the most complete players I know. A very good two-way player as well. Now, moving on, Bernard King, again, another one with winning intangibles that the Knicks weren't able to get after that. Because since then they did have great players, but they just don't seem to be able to get anywhere near a championship. Bernard King, I think he averaged 30 plus points a game as well, even though his arrow was a little bit weaker, but it's still impressive he was able to average that consistently. Now, people seem to forget, very hard to maintain that over a long period of time, so yeah, much respect to Bernard King. Now, got Carmelo Anthony at 52. Again, just like Paul Pierce, he's a very good attacker. Paul Pierce actually once said he would rather guard Kobe, T-Mac, all these guys, but not Melo. The issue with Melo is that he just doesn't have great defense, but his smooth shooting is what made him such an elite threat in the NBA, because his offensive skills are complete. When there's a tall guy on him, he can just be explosive and get out of the way so he can finish the shot with a layup or whatever he does to do. And when he has a small guy on him, he can just post him up. So have to have a very consistent defender of a perfect size for you to actually stop him from scoring. Won a scoring title as well, so yeah. 51, I got Adrian Dantley. The reason I haven't built Melo is that his scoring was just ever so slightly better. He had 4 30 points per game season in his career. Just a shame he just didn't win anything, so that's the issue right there. Number 50, I got Reggie Miller. One of the best shooters in the NBA. I think one of the first guys that actually took threes as much as people nowadays do. Well, not nowadays, people shoot crazy now, but Reggie Miller at the time actually took like 5 or 6 threes a game, I feel like. And for a while, he held the record for most 3-pointers made in history. Yeah, first guy to revolutionize a 3-pointer is Reggie Miller. He was also known as a villain sometimes because of what he did in Indy, all this stuff. But yeah, great player, very clutch down the line, very clutch closer. But just a shame wasn't able to win the championship. Someone that did win the championship is Ray Allen. Now, Ray Allen is number 3 for me in 3-point shooting. I think on top of just 3-point shooting, he can also cut to the basket and score in his prime. I think after he went to the Celtics, that's when he became just a catch and shoot 3, and he still made so many clutch shots. And the most important one was definitely the 2013 finals against San Antonio Spurs. That 3 that sank in ultimately saved Miami from elimination that season and prevented Tim Duncan from winning a 6th ring. So yeah. Elvin Hayes, now another guy that was definitely a top 7 power forward, and yeah, very productive. Averages 20 points a game, and I think up to 28 points a game, I think. So yeah, Elvin Hayes is just amazing. Patrick Ewing, it's just a shame that his career was a little bit in disillusionment, but he when he came to New York, there was so much hype around him. I think the David Stern rigged the draft lottery so that New York can get Patrick Ewing. But Ewing has since been a great player. It's just that his playoff runs were often cut short because they had such a tough Eastern Conference that's led by Michael Jordan. And sometimes you can blame him for it because, like, most importantly, that missed layup against the Pacers that killed their chances that season. 46, I got Bob Cousy, the first short guy to play in the NBA. Like, one of the... he actually initially wasn't wanting at the Celtics. The Celtics were forced to give him a job because in the dispersal draft, they had to pick up somebody, and they actually ended up getting him. And quickly, he showed why he deserved to be in there because he was an all-star in his first season, and he eventually became a 11-time all-star, I think, and led the league in assists multiple times as well. And won a lot of championships. Shame he could have, I think, stayed a little bit more to win a couple more, but it is what it is. He's the one that started the Celtics dynasty along with Bill Russell later on. He came actually before Bill Russell, so yeah. Now this one might be a bit debatable. I feel like, much as I don't like this guy, but I feel like he has become an NBA legend already. Luka Doncic. And the reason I say that because I just never seen anybody that just adjust into the NBA from a European league so quickly. This is his like 6th season in the NBA, and he's already averaging 30 points. He averaged 30 points last season, and he is on track to do even better this time. Yeah, triple-double threat, can pass the ball, rebound, and can shoot the ball as well, and have made some big shots in his career. It's just a shame that his team around him just wasn't great. Like, yeah, Davis Bertans and all these guys. And Davis Bertans was on like an $80 million contract. That is crazy. Moving on, I got Joel Embiid. Again, not much playoff success, but his scoring, footwork, like the key, capable three-point shooter, and he actually was the star player that took Philly from the bottom of the East to the almost near top. And yeah, part of that has to do with Embiid, but also in the playoffs, there are many times I feel like Embiid could have done a bit better to help his team out. Number 43, I got Tracy McGrady. Now, Tracy McGrady, another guy I could have felt like he could have easily been the best player in the world if he hadn't had those injuries. If you look at him with Magic, he had won 2 scoring titles in a row, went to the Rockets, and even though his scoring did go down because he had to share the ball with Yao, but he was still a great scorer. Think of the game against the Spurs. He got 13 points in 39 seconds to win the game. Bro, I still can't imagine how you can do that. But that's Tracy McGrady. 42, I got Chris Paul. Very good defender and great passer of the ball as well. Doesn't have a lot of playoff success again, but Chris Paul is a real deal and can make any team better as soon as he steps foot onto the court, because in his prime, he was a magician with the ball. Now, 41, I got Vince Carter, entertainer. His slams, dunks with the Raptors is just so much that Toronto Raptors actually made a name for themselves, and unlike Vancouver Grizzlies, the Toronto Raptors actually became relevant in the NBA, mostly because Vince Carter revolutionized the team as well. John Havlicek, another underrated scorer back in the day. If you think of the first radio broadcast that became famous, the Havlicek stole the ball. Havlicek averages a career high 29 points a game, holds the record for most playoff point in one game by a Celtic with 54, won like I think 8 championships. I think he was like one of the guys that stayed even after the Russell era ended, but then Havlicek himself was able to stay on the team and still keep on winning championships for them, even though he did decline later 80s, and then yeah, you know what happened. Larry Bird came and took the team over after that. Julius Erving, I think he could have been a bit higher on this list if he actually started his career in the NBA. He actually started his career in the ABA, which I don't know what the thing was, but then they formatted together, and Julius Erving was still a great player, but I just don't think he did really produce the form he had in the ABA. So Bob Petit, guy with the St. Louis Hawks and huge player at the time. He beat Bill Russell and the Celtics as well during that run, I think. So yeah, for them to beat the Celtics at the time was just an incredible achievement. Dominic Wilkins is the next guy on my list, and never need to say anything more. I think everybody since then, only people think about Hawks until Trae Young is probably Dominic Wilkins. Very, very prolific scorer, perfect small forward. Even Jordan said he's going to be in, he would include him in his scrub team. So just shows how great Dominic Wilkins was as a player, and he averaged 30 points a game as well. So that's just crazy. Russell Westbrook at 36, Mr. Triple-Double, and the only player to do it multiple times, and the first player to do it since Oscar Robertson. He won MVP, and I think what made him so great is that he always gives 110% each and every night. I think multiple-time All-Star as well, but again, I don't think playoff runs has been that significant during his career, but he, as a player, he's an entertainer, and I think yeah, what he brought to the game would always be memorable. You know what time it is? Damian Lillard. Now, another player that doesn't really have a lot of great playoff runs, but mostly it's because of his team with the Blazers. He stuck with the Blazers for so long. I am surprised that he stayed for there as long as he did, because they were just failing him. They were giving Evan Turner, these guys, contracts, Alan Crabb. They had a team where they had Noah Vonleh starting as center to play against the Warriors, and then after that they didn't even make a single move. It's just crazy. They didn't really have anybody since DeMarcus Aldridge left, but yeah, Dame continued to play, and it was only because of him that Portland are not the most depressing team in the NBA during that time period. I'll be honest with it. 34, another polarizing figure, Kyrie Irving. But when he's on the court, undeniably, he is amazing. He's a wizard with the ball, one of the best ball handlers in the NBA right now, even of all time probably, because the way he can just dance with the ball, so smooth, and can just finish at the rack. Very capable scorer, great passer of the ball, and an underrated defender as well. So, and who can forget that big shot against the Golden State Warriors to win that game? Coming back from 3-1 is just, yeah, that shot should have been more recognized and more appreciated personally. Now moving on, Isaiah Thomas, not everybody's favorite player, but it's no denying that he was a great player, a great leader, and I think he turned his game up the most come playoff time, and this is why the bad boy Pistons was able to win 2 championships, because Isaiah Thomas was such an amazing player. He even still was able to score like 40 odd points even though he was limping. So I think as a warrior on the court, and I think that should deserve a bit more respect, and I think people should overlook the fact that his team played dirty and just appreciate that he was such a warrior on the court. Jerry West at 32 now. He was known as Mr. Clutch, and I think he could have averaged even more points. He's averaging 30 points even before the three-point line was invented, but he was the one that's been shooting three-point range when there was no NBA three-pointer at the time. So yeah, Jerry West, very clutch player, and was responsible for championships, even though they did lose the Celtics multiple times as well. Now moving on, I got Rick Barry. I think if you think of Rick Barry, most notable, you just remember the granny shot free throw, and that's actually pretty accurate. He actually shot 95% from the line. That's actually a lot better than some very great shooters nowadays. So that is just, to think that can shoot 95% from the line is crazy. And I think he had a season where he averaged 35 points, so it's crazy. And probably one of the only recognizable faces after Wilt Chamberlain and before like Chris Mullin and whatnot. So yeah, moving on, we're into our top 30. Got Anthony Davis. Davis's career, I think he's sometimes very hard to analyze because he did spend most of his time with New Orleans and he didn't really do much, and did come to the Lakers and won a championship and hasn't done anything since then. So he probably, like, I don't know what would have happened if he hadn't won a championship, but regardless, he's still a great player, great defender, and definitely one of the best power forward in our generation back in the 2010s. Moving on, I got George the Iceman Gervin at 29. Now, Gervin was an underrated player with the Spurs. I feel like he's the first name from the Spurs as well. But yeah, nowadays people seem to not really talk about him as much, but he was a great scorer and he was picked up very late as well. So 28, I got Charles Barkley. Never won a championship again, and he sometimes could say it's kind of his problem, but at the same time, he was playing in such a competitive conference. Won an MVP over Jordan as well. That's something really hard to do. And yeah, great scorer, great rebounder, and I think he's like the first player to have like 20,000 points and 15,000 rebounds or something like that. So yeah, very great player as well. Moving on, I got number 27, Kawhi the Claw Leonard. He's a very good defender. One of the best two-way players in the NBA, can score and defend very well. When he came into the league, he was known for more of a defender, but then he eventually became more of an attacking threat as well. Just seeing how his career evolved through the years. He won Finals MVP with Toronto. That was a legendary playoff run, and he had a legendary spell there. And he won Finals MVP at such a young age. I think it was like 24 when he won that one. So, and now with the Clippers, and I don't think he's showing any signs of slowing down, even though he had that Achilles injury. Now we're going to move on to 26, Steve Nash. Even though, yes, he won MVP, won a couple over some top players like Shaquille O'Neal and whatnot, even though he doesn't deserve it, but Steve Nash is still one of the best passers, and I think one of the most disciplined players in the NBA at the time. He was also able to stay in the NBA for a long time, partly because, yeah, he stayed disciplined. Like I said, definitely a top 3-point guard in my opinion, and yeah, no longer a coach, but no denying him as a player because one of the best point guards of all time. Now, moving on, I got John Stockton. He actually holds a record for most assist titles, and he played for a long time with Utah, stayed in Utah for a long time, also had a very long career. Shame he didn't actually win a title with them because he had to face Chicago Bulls every year, but one of the best passers of all time, and gotta respect that. In the end, the original Mr. Triple-Double, Oscar Robertson. Now, also again, a very great scorer, and I think he was one of the leaders during that Milwaukee Bucks championship run. I think it was in 1971, and ironically, since then, they haven't actually been able to win one for 50 years. So, yeah, took them a while. Just shows how much Oscar Robertson was to the Milwaukee Bucks and later Kareem, but Oscar Robertson was the leader of that team. So, Oscar Robertson at 24. Moving on to number 23, I got Dwayne Wade. Now, Wade also had a very evolved career as well, and I think coming into the league, I feel like he was more of a mid-range shooter and also can go to the rack and perform dunks and whatnot. But later on, he also be able to transition into a more modern approach, develop the three-point shot, and even during his 30s where people thought he was out of his prime, but he was still a fantastic player and was the leader that he wanted. And he capped off his career with a game-winning 3 against the Warriors in the regular season. So yeah, watch that shot. I still can't believe how that went in and how he got off in time. Now we're going to move on to the big ticket, Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett is probably the most versatile players of all time. And I'll say this because he was the first player to lead his team in all 5 major statistical categories. Just shows that he puts his heart and soul on both offense and defense during his time at Minnesota. And Minnesota, let's be honest, nobody talks about Minnesota without having to talk about Kevin Garnett at the time. And he won MVP there, got them to the conference finals, which they never even were close to doing since then. And since he left the Timberwolves, they actually haven't been able to make the playoffs for like 13 years. So it just shows how much Kevin Garnett means to Timberwolves. So just shows how valuable he is. When he came to Boston, now that they've got offense taken care of, he showed his pride at defense, actually won a defensive player of the year. So very successful career, Kevin Garnett. Number 21, I got Allen Iverson. Now, Iverson was a great scorer, but one of the best ball handlers in the NBA and one of the most influential players in the NBA. Invented all the hairstyles and whatnot. Why people come to games nowadays with all the swaggy clothes and whatnot is because of Allen Iverson. And he could have easily not done it because the NBA keeps finding him about it. And yeah, very underrated player now because people just seem to talk about his efficiency and whatnot, and the fact that he wasn't able to win the championship and his game, he parties too much, doesn't try too hard. But when he was on the court, he always plays 110% without a doubt, and he puts on a show each and every night. Number 20, I got the man that invented the second most unstoppable shot in the NBA, Dirk Nowitzki. Dirk Nowitzki has been the one-man team. Like, he stayed for his franchise for his entire career for like 21 seasons. Yeah, and that's the most ever spent by a one team, even more than Kobe Bryant. So, and I'm very glad that he actually ended up winning that championship, because Dirk deserved that, because he meant so much to Dallas, and Dallas definitely meant so much to him as well. And I really feel like he earned it, and it was just a fairy tale that he was able to win it, even though he wasn't able to win another playoff series again after that. He had an amazing career regardless. Number 19, I'm gonna go with Karl Malone. He's a MVP, won the MVP, great scorer, average 31. It's just the fact that he has some shaky playoff runs, but Karl Malone was definitely one of the best scorers in his generation and the best power forward at the time, until Tim Duncan. Now we're going to move on to 18. I'm going to go with one of the new guys, the current Mr. Triple-Double, Nikola Jokic. And won a championship, two-time MVP, and what makes him unique is the fact that he was a big man that is able to pass the ball like a point guard. Very versatile player, not the great best interior defender, but that does not matter because his offense is superhuman-like, and the fact that he came here after being drafted through a Taco Bell commercial is very, very inspirational. 17, I got James Harden. Now, James Harden is easily one of the best scorers of all time, and I think he can even compete with Jordan with that, because of the fact that he invented so many cheat codes to score so many points. And that's also a skill, nonetheless. And I think he was robbed with a couple of MVPs in the regular season, because in the regular season, Harden is an absolute monster. And I just think every time you come to watch the Houston Rockets, James Harden, he just drops 40 every single time. Again, having a shaky playoff run, hasn't really came close to winning title. And I feel like the higher the expectation, he just performs a lot worse, but does not take away from him as a player regardless. Number 16, I got Moses Malone with Philadelphia. Also one of the last guys with winning intangibles when whilst playing with the Philadelphia 76ers. Very underrated player. I think people don't even rank in top 5 center, which he shouldn't be, and I feel like Moses Malone is definitely, he averages 31 points and double digits in rebounds consistently. Was a huge part in the Philadelphia's championship runs as well, and it's just amazing that it's even amazing to the fact that you see now that they haven't even won any. Moses Malone at 16. Number 15. Love to make fun of this guy when he loses, but you have to still give him the respect. Giannis Antetokounmpo. You can't stop him. Nobody can guard him because he's just a 6'11" Greek freak. Because all he can do is just drive to the rack and finish. And whenever the team needs help, he's just there and does that. Even though for some people it just doesn't take much skill, but you can't help but like that, because he just helps you bail your team out. And if you think of that playoff series against the Celtics, who knows what would happen? He probably would have swept the Bucks if it wasn't for Giannis. He was averaging 34 points, 14 rebounds, and 9 assists. Number 14, David Robinson. Now, one of the original centers from the Spurs, and I think he was responsible for one of the biggest season turnarounds. And when the Spurs, they weren't really great before he came in, and after he came in, they became a dynasty along with Rodman, even though he didn't stay a long time, and later Tim Duncan as well. So David Robinson, I think he also recorded a quadruple double as well once a game, and one of the few players to do it. So yeah, that's what I have to say about David Robinson. 13, I got Kevin Durant. Best scorer for me in the world, even till today. And I think he has the most polished offensive skill set, because he can score from 3 and from the field very efficiently. And he's also developed a bit of a clutch gene and can able to carry a team to victories. And that's what Kevin Durant has been doing since he came into the NBA. Yes, it did take him going to have to go to the Golden State Warriors to win a championship, but that does not deny KD as a player. Number 12, I got Hakeem Olajuwon. And the first thing I will say about this, the fact that this guy got drafted ahead of Jordan and is still not been bashed about, just shows how great Hakeem was. And yeah, he was a leader for Houston Rockets, won the 2 championships in which Michael Jordan had to retire. And yeah, very versatile player. One of the best defenders, was part of the two Stifle Towers along with Ralph Sampson during Twin Towers, not Stifle, no, along with Ralph Sampson during the 80s, and then came into the 90s where he had a more complete team and they will be able to win the championship because they were just amazing. So that's all I'm going to say about Hakeem Olajuwon. Number 11, I got Bill Russell. Most championships of all time with 11. Just doesn't even fit his fingers because he has more rings than he does fingers. And one of the best winners in the NBA and changed history completely with his ability to win. Very, very vocal guy as well during his time. And yeah, one of the best rebounders in the playoffs. And the second best rebounder in NBA history behind Wilt Chamberlain. And which moves me on to Wilt Chamberlain. Do I even need to say he has second most points per game, second best points per game record of all time with 30. The season where he averaged 50. And yeah, also the first guy to introduce free agency to the NBA because he was the guy. Initially, they didn't really allow like people to move a lot so much, but he was able to do what he wants because he was such a powerful figure in the NBA. So yeah, now diving into number 9, I got Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal just bursted onto the scene the moment he stepped foot into the NBA and has dominated in the NBA for over 10 years before he was out of his prime. Now, and during that span, you cannot stop this guy unless you send him to the free throw line. Other than that, no, he's just going to use his body and post you up. It's very simple. A move like that, and yeah, everybody's scared of that move. Number 8, I got the big fundamental, Tim Duncan. Now, I would have actually had Tim Duncan a bit higher up on the list, but I just don't feel like he should. I don't know. I just feel like he's a little bit boring for me to put him any higher. Doesn't take away from Tim Duncan as a player. Fundamental, invented the bank shot, even though it's not used that much. I think he used in 8% of games now. But Tim Duncan, undeniable, the best power forward of all time and one of the best players of all time. Won 5 championships, could have won another one if it was not for Ray Allen. So yeah, and the fact that he was taken out of the game and people nowadays still said that he should be in the game when Chris Bosh got that rebound. So that was the best, most fundamental player of all time. Now I'm gonna go with the best shooter of all time. Steph Curry, best shooter, can shoot from absolutely everywhere, from half court to whatnot. Holds the record for most keys in NBA history. I think he hit 5 of those. And yeah, it's just some of his shots that he hits just makes us feel amazed on how easily he can shoot these shots. The best shooter in NBA history, won 4 championships, first ever unanimous MVP, and still the only unanimous MVP in the league, Steph Curry. Now, moving on to number 6, I got Kobe Bryant, most hard-working player in the NBA, and shows his hard work on the court as well. He gives 110% for all the fans that want to watch him play. This is why Kobe have so many fans nowadays and why so many NBA players today look up to him, like Tatum, Booker, Paul George, Isaiah, all these guys. Why? It's simply because he was an entertainer and he made so many people love basketball because of the way he's been playing it. And he rocked up at the end of his career with a 60-point game. That makes it even better. Just shows dedication of Kobe Bryant. And rest in peace, just shocked that it's a real crazy thing. I actually didn't know who he was before I heard that helicopter thing, but yeah, just sucks, bro. I never thought. That's probably the most shocking celebrity death of all time, personally. Now I'm gonna move on to number 5, and this guy I never seen anybody put him number 5. Everybody puts him in the top 10, but I never seen anybody put him at number 5, and I got Larry Bird. Now, the reason I have Larry Bird this high, not because I'm a Celtics fan, it's simply because he is one of the most efficient players during his generation and the most underrated shooter as well. Because what Bird has done during his time there, he has influenced the fundamentals of shooting. He puts up the greatest shooting exhibition in NBA history during his game against the Hawks, born with a clutch gene. He is able to predict each and every game and how the outcome would go because he's this confident in himself and he believes he's the best and he is going to be the best. Now, moving on to number 4, I got Magic Johnson, one of Larry Bird's rivals, best passer in NBA history, easily. And one of the difference between him and Stockton is that Magic Johnson was able to win championships. He's won 5. He won 3 MVPs as well, and holds the record for most assists per game. And the Celtics-Lakers rivalry, I think that rivalry was the reason NBA was so popular back then. And yeah, and after the Larry O'Brien era, the NBA was just dead. But because of Showtime Lakers against the Boston Celtics, the NBA was able to revive itself in the public eyes, and they got both of them actually ended up getting rewarded because they're now the conference finals MVP are now named after those 2 guys. I think the last 3 guys we all should know, but I'm just gonna put them in order right now. Number 3, I got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Very simple, most MVPs ever with 6, and he has won 6 rings on top of that. He won 1 with Milwaukee and won 5 more with the Lakers. Very fantastic duel with both Oscar Robertson and Magic Johnson, and was even very productive even into his 40s. Just shows a great longevity of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He previously held the record for most points of all time until it was surpassed by the next guy on my list. But yeah, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is one of the top players in NBA history. And we know about the most unstoppable shot of all time, the sky hook. That you just can't guard that because he puts his entire body in the way. And the fact that he was one of the only guys to actually hit it at a very accurate pace just shows the brilliance of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Moving on to number 2, it's very simple. LeBron James, another player with insane longevity. Even now, he's still averaging 25 points a game, and people need to respect that. And his career as a whole, it should be admired because he was able to dominate so many players, so many teams over the last couple of years. Example being Hawks, Celtics, Raptors, Indiana, Wizards. All these guys have been a victim of LeBron James, and LeBron James was able to stop all the hopes. If it was not for LeBron James, I think the NBA will be a lot more share between. There wouldn't be this one team that's going to the finals every year. There wouldn't be just one face going into the finals every year. And this is why LeBron James is, without a doubt, the best player in his generation and the second best player of all time. Now moving on to the best player of all time, and I think all of you should know who he is, and that's Michael Jordan. Very simple. He has a very clutch gene, one of, I think, the second most buzzer beaters of all time behind Kobe Bryant, which I forgot to mention. Most points per game of all time with 30.1, 10 scoring titles, oldest scoring champion in NBA history, won 2 3-peats. And what makes him good is that his record has been sensational. Like during his prime Michael Jordan, his record, his team was virtually invincible. And I can go on and on and on about Michael Jordan, but I'm just gonna leave it here. Thank you guys so much for watching this long video. I know it's been a long time, yeah, but it is what it is. And I'll guys see you next time. Bye.